Lucy, you've had the joy, the trauma, the fun, the frustration of working with our dear friend Kate, of course. And I imagine from a documentary maker's point of view, this is an extraordinary project, but equally an incredibly sensitive one as well. How did you go about working out the extraordinary jigsaw that you've put together to make the documentary?
Well, you never know what you're going to find with Kate when you open her door. I mean, it really did. The highs and lows were so extreme. And, I remember one time turning up and there was no back to the house. She'd sort of ripped out the back of the house. The fridge was all over the floor. There was food everywhere. Everything was defrosting. And it was, I think it was about adapting constantly, because Kate's life is so fast and everything was happening so quickly that I could barely keep up. And it would take me a couple of hours whenever I left her to kind of decompress about what had just happened. So I don't know how she lived in the moment constantly.
One of the reasons, Kate, that the back of the house was removed was because you have been adapting. I mean, literally, physically adapting. Yes, I have been adapting.
So there is a point where I just decided I have to focus on something positive. And one of the things, the goals, I think, for anybody who's ill is to get them home. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to talk to the hospital about what are the basic things that need to happen if he could ever come home. And I'm just going to go for it now. And Lucy arrived, and I think you actually thought, Lucy, that I'd finally lost it, hadn't you? Because you were just like, what fresh chaos and hell is this? And do I need to take her to one side and say, you need some help? But then we talked about it and we explained that actually, if I could do this now, it meant that we were ready for the best that could possibly happen in the future.
You have adapted the house, of course, and in the documentary you do...
It does need more.
Yeah, well, it's still ongoing.
It's ongoing.
The Garraway project full stop is ongoing, let's face it. Yeah. But you do address the fact that potentially, you say in the documentary, you might have to give up work to become Derek's full-time carer. Now, we know how important work has been for you and your mental health throughout all of this. Can you explain your thinking there? Because, we want to make sure that you're given everything you possibly can to help Derek. But what do you need as well?
You can't get rid of me that easily, Shephard. I don't think I ever... I'm not going anywhere. I don't think I ever really saw it as ever giving up work. I think what I saw it is, right, I'm going to have to change my future. Anybody who's facing a long-term impacted illness is going to. And that's going to mean altering my life. Actually, the reality is that ITV and Global Radio and Through the Radio, everybody has been so supportive. And to be honest, being here has kept me sane. Not just because you're all amazing supportive, but people at home are so supportive. And it's a slice of normal. It's a slice of life before. And the truth is that as much as I might think I have all the answers sometimes, Derek doesn't need me. I'm not the person to care for him. I obviously will be there completely 100% if that would make a difference. But actually what Derek needs is specialist, professional, medical support ongoing, because there is a good chance that he can improve, but we need to make sure that the support is there now for that to happen. And whether that be remaining in hospital, or whether that be something else, I would like that to be home. But it is not just a case of, I would want to sit there and hold his hand, but people in this situation need expertise, and I'm not an expert.
Dr. Hillary, you were there right at the beginning. I know that Kate called you for your advice before Derek went into hospital. Is there any clear explanation, and I know that Kate, you must be asking this every single day, about why Derek has been so badly affected?
We discussed this, didn't we? And he didn't have any pre-existing condition.
No.
We need to look at the genetics of why COVID-19 affects some people apparently randomly and disproportionately. We don't understand why it affects some people more than others. It clearly does, and we need to look at the genetics of that. I'm sure work is being done. And it does randomly pick people out, apparently, and we don't understand why. But I was able to speak to Derek briefly on the phone that night, and, it was then I gave Kate the advice to call the ambulance and good that we did.
I mean, it was vital. I mean, I think one of the, sorry, chipping in again, one of the things, Hilary, that I think made it challenging for Derek is because he didn't have the obvious symptoms, did he? So everybody was focused at the time on continuous cough and high temperature, which he didn't have. I think as well on top of that, for a month he had been suffering with a shoulder problem, which he'd been taking painkillers for and was waiting for some treatment for. And I wonder if some other symptoms that might have displayed themselves, he connected with that. We'll never know. But the other problem is that what's impacted Derek has been massive amounts of inflammation and inflammatory damage throughout his whole body, which at the very start, it was all focused on damage to the lungs. So in all honesty, people probably weren't looking for where the greatest impact of Derek had at that point, you know, and he was also, things that might have shown it up, like MRIs, he was too sick to have at that point. Yeah. So, you know, hopefully now we are more aware of those things. And hopefully, I mean, one of the tragedies, but also I think one of the things Derek would find very positive and would take some comfort in is that because of the damage that he's had, people are now looking for that sort of damage. So hopefully that means others won't go through it.
Look, Kate, the documentary is an incredibly raw journey through your year. And it is devastating what's happened. And we are, you know, our hearts are with you. But one of the things, a number of things came out of it, because we have been lucky enough, privileged enough to have watched it before everybody else is able to see it at 9 o'clock tonight on ITV. There is
also lived it.
And do you know what? That's been our privilege as well, to be able to support you in the ways that we possibly can. But you have so much love and strength in your marriage. And there is so much about the children that they just go with what's happening. They are so loving and laissez-faire and accepting, and there is still so much joy you're able to give them within the home.
Well,
how are they?
I don't know. I mean, they are fundamentally extraordinary. You know, all children are extraordinary. Every parent thinks their child is extraordinary. But I think they've coped tremendously well. I mean, the simple act of talking on FaceTime to a dad that's very changed is a huge one. They cope with it in their different ways. You know, they're amazing. I mean, they've both seen it, the documentary, because I wanted to make sure they had and felt comfortable with it, as did Lucy as well. And I was comforted by the fact that, obviously they've seen a lot of the things that will be a shock to people because they've been talking to them on FaceTime. And then Billy's main comment was, oh, I can't believe that they showed the bit of me on the trampoline before I could do a backflip. And I've since learnt to do one. So as soon as he said that, I'm like, OK, we're fine. Yeah. We're fine. Yeah. He's worried about his backflips. But of course he's not. He's worried about his dad and they're coping every day. And I just think, actually, you know, it's a compliment to Derek.
Yes.
Because he's filled them through with so much love and confidence up until now, and hopefully we'll be able to again, that they have that inside of them.
They do.
You're a tower of strength and
courage.
A
titan. You've been
love.
described as a titan.
A titan. Well, there is an element of the Titanic about me.
Cheryl says, absolute titan.
Everybody feels like they've hit an iceberg when they meet me.
Positivity shines through, keeping everything crossed for Derek. Lucy, one last thing, because you lived with Kate essentially over the last year, so you've experienced what it is to try and get her to do anything or listen.
Can I just say, she turned up just before Christmas when my freezer had broken with a huge pile of food that she bought herself, and it was proper mum's food. It was chicken bits and frozen chips. You know, the stuff that mums know that kids need rather than glamorous stuff.
Going back to where I was, Lucy, before I was interrupted, as usual. Just asking for a friend, how did you cope?
With Kate?
Yeah.
I think this is the first time she's seen me without a mask. A lot of nodding. No, I just adore the family. I think the moment I met them all, especially the kids, yeah, I love them all, and including Derek. I've got to kind of know him through the kids and Kate, and the kids have given me a playlist of all his favourite music, which we've included in the documentary, and I've read everything he's written. And that house misses him. You feel it in the house, you know, and I think you'll feel it in the documentary. And I'm you know, there are difficult parts in the documentary, but I'm so glad we got to include them because they're just the tip of the iceberg of what the family have had to go through. And so many other families around the UK, around the world.
Lucy, you, absolutely well said. And Kate, that has always been, you know, alongside your own experience, your focus. It is a reflection of what other families have gone through.
It is.
And some families have had people who've survived and with no impact beyond the illness. And some are in the situation where they have lost loved ones. And some are suffering the result of long COVID in differing ways to Derek. But you have always made the point.
Yeah.
You are a sort of conductor for all of those experiences.
Yes, and maybe in a strange sort of way, you know, this time yesterday, last year, terrible things still happened in the world.
Yeah.
There were awful things that still happen. One of the unique things about this year has been we've all had a common foe and a common fear, and it's affected everybody in different ways, livelihoods, mental health, the simple anxiety of being isolated and alone. We've all been through something, and maybe that's the thing we should hold on to, that actually that will keep us going if we can stick together. And yes, and please watch tonight, and please realise that we are still smiling as well, hopefully.
Yeah.
There is a lot of hope and a lot of love in the documentary. Don't worry about that. Lucy, thank you so much for joining us this morning and for everything you've done and for looking after our friend so brilliantly. Kate, thank you for sharing the story with us.
Lovely to be here.
Finding Derek is on at 9 o'clock tonight on ITV. Jeff, SMC, Sai, Lisa, Claire, Ashley, Janet, Julie, Michelle, Leah, Claire, all sending their love.
Everyone.
Our heart breaks for Kate. Such a strong, beautiful lady. We'll be watching. We're sending you big hugs.
Thank you.
Well done.
And our love to
and
Derek.
love back to all of you as well. Thank you. And love to Derek. Thank you, I will do.